You know, I got the toys in my knapsack, the hoodie I just smacked, because I don't play. So, got the toys in my knapsack, the hoodie I just smacked.
Hello and welcome into CUTV's NHL Playoff Preview Show for the 2016 Stanley Cup Playoffs. We're restarting a CUTV tradition that was started a few years ago by some of our former students, and I was part of one a couple years ago, and now I'm bringing on another guy with me in my final run of this show, as I am Zach Brosba, and joining me is Anthony D'Agostino. You've probably seen us around on CUTV a whole lot. Now we're moving away from high school football, real talk, after hours, stuff like that. We're going to get down to the nitty-gritty NHL playoffs, which there's really none better in all major sports, Anthony.
No, it's probably the best in major sports in that you have 7 games in each series. It's not one game and you're done. You got 7 games of blood, sweat, and tears making it all the way in to the Stanley Cup championship game. And Zach, this year looks to be like a great matchup, as it always is.
Yeah, I really have not been this excited for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I think in a couple of years. Last year, I just did not have the same fizzle for me that it always has. We're going to go ahead and dive right into it. We're going to start with the Western Conference. We're going to start with the Central Division sub-bracket. And the first matchup you see there is the Dallas Stars against the Minnesota Wild. And before we get you our picks for these games, we're going to go some X factors. And Anthony, we're going to start with you for the Dallas Stars. You got a guy who, without Tyler Seguin, he's had to step up his game in Dallas, and that's Cody Eakin.
Yeah, Cody Eakin, you see, he's one of the players that you don't necessarily see all the time with Dallas, but Cody Eakin, probably one of the better offensive players for the Dallas Stars. We have headshots. If we can get them up there, we'll put the headshots of these players on.
Yeah, and right there, Cody Eakin, you put Dylan Larkin, but it's Cody Eakin, and it was a last-minute hustle to get things ready. But as for my player to watch, I'm going with Jamie Benn, who has been one of the stars for the Stars over the last couple seasons, and he seems to kind of tapered off a little bit this year. And with Tyler Seguin out, that's really hurt his game. And I think he really needs to step up in this series for the Stars to be able to win it, as they should. And then we'll go ahead and go look at the Minnesota Wild, and you're going with the guy who, best name in the NHL, Nino Niederreiter from Norway.
Yeah, Nino Niederreiter, you hear him every now and then, third liner. Most of my guys I picked are third liners. I decided to go with the route of saying, we already know who the stars are on all these teams. I'm looking at someone who has those bursts of energy that they bring in to these teams, and Nino Niederreiter is one of those players. Comes off the bench, and he doesn't always score, but he makes his presence known out there on the ice.
Yeah, he flies. He's very speedy, and that always makes a difference in the playoffs, is speed and making your opponent wear down. As for my player to watch for the Minnesota Wild, I'm going with their goaltender, my first goaltender tonight, Devon Dubnyk, who has been really good over the last couple weeks to month of play, getting the Minnesota Wild from a dump in the middle of the season, firing their coach, now back into the playoffs as the 8th seed, really. And they're going to have a tough time with the Dallas Stars, though. And when we look at our pick, you and I are both going with the Stars, 5 or 6 games for each of us. But Minnesota, I think they have a chance. They were one of the teams I thought in preseason that could do something, but Dallas has just looked so good all year long.
Yeah, Dallas, watching them with Washington Capitals playing them, seeing the stats and the amount of goals they can score against who is now the #1 team in the NHL is amazing. I don't think I've seen that in a long time, in that the Dallas Stars, right now, they're the stars of the West, and it's proven that they're the #1 seed in the West this year.
Yeah, not since the days of Marty Turco, Brendan Morrow, and guys like that back in the early 2000s. We've not seen a success like that from Dallas. So we both have them moving on. As for the next matchup, you have a classic, nitty-gritty one that playoff brooders love. You got the Blues and you got the Blackhawks. St. Louis, Chicago. Those cities already don't like each other when it comes to sports. You got the Cardinals and the Cubs. Now we're going to have it back on the hockey rink. They played in the first round a couple years ago as well, and it seems whoever the Blackhawks play in the first round, one of those two teams could very easily get to the Stanley Cup final, and I think it's no different this year. We'll start with the Blues. Your player to watch, a guy that had playoff success in Colorado a couple years ago. Now he's with the Blues.
Yeah, and you see there on your screen, St. Louis Blues star athlete that you don't necessarily see him all the time, but he's one of the best players. Wish we had the headshot to show Paul Stastny, one of the better Blues players.
Yeah, Paul Stastny, he's kind of had his role reduced ever since moving from Colorado, where he was the guy for a while. But now as a Blue, he's kind of just making his way into a different kind of role. So now my guy to watch for the Blues, though, Vladimir Tarasenko, 40 goal scorer. You got Vlad Tarasenko there. He's a young guy. He's got to keep it up in the playoffs, though, especially against the Blackhawks defense. You got Duncan Keith and guys like that, Brent Seabrook. I think the Blues, they have a tough battle test ahead of them. And now looking at the Blackhawks quickly, you got Artem Anisimov. When you got guys laid all over that team that can score goals, you got a guy that a lot of people probably don't know about.
Artem Anisimov, one of them players, like I said before, that third liner, fourth liner that scores goals. That's what he does. He's one of those 6 scorers that you see on your team. Blackhawks. You know all the Blackhawks players. Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, all of them on the Blackhawks. Everyone knows them, but Artem Anisimov is someone that not everyone knows, but is kind of that under the radar player that the Blackhawks need to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and for my guy to watch, I'm actually going with an Artem as well. You just got to add an I at the end of it. Artemi Panarin. He's a rookie. He looks like a little baby-faced kid up there as well. And you look at his picture, Artemi Panarin is the first Blackhawks player to score 30 goals as a rookie in about 22 seasons. And that goes back to 94-95. And, of course, we don't include the lockout year of 04-05. But Artemi Panarin, I didn't hear about him until maybe this last week. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's good. There's a lot of Rookie of the Year consideration. A lot of people I've seen have him winning the Calder over McDavid and Eichel and Gostisbehere, who we'll talk about a little bit later because the Flyers playing your beloved Capitals. But Artemi Panarin, he's a guy that could go out and he could score goals at will. Put up hat tricks, and you got Patrick Kane to worry about, Jonathan Taves, Andrew Ladd, Duncan Keith. Now you got Artemi Panarin. And as far as who we have winning this series, we're both going with Chicago. We're kind of dead set right now. Dallas, Chicago the next round, but both 7 games, though. This is going to be a great series.
Yeah, Chicago Blackhawks always put on a show when they're in the playoffs. They're kind of like the Detroit Red Wings. They're always in the playoffs. And when they get in the playoffs, the Blackhawks do a little better job than Detroit. They make it farther in the playoffs. And we've seen that over the past 2 years, them winning the entire Stanley Cup, or at least getting to the finals. So nothing less than that this year that they won.
Yeah, it's the Red Wings, Penguins, Blackhawks. Those are the 3 longest continuous streaks in the playoffs in the NHL. Now that we're done with the Central, we're going to move down to the Pacific Division sub-bracket, and it starts with the Anaheim Ducks, who at one point this year looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs. And I had them as my preseason Stanley Cup pick. Anthony, you had them going far. They're going to play the Nashville Predators in the first round. This should be easy for them. But when we look at our Ducks players to watch, you got a guy who's a center, came over from Vancouver a couple years ago. Ryan Kessler, he's had a lot of success with the American Olympic team. Maybe he can transition that to Anaheim.
Yeah, Ryan Kessler, he's one of the you know about, but he's not necessarily on the score sheet all that much. But again, when other players who are normally on the score sheet aren't on the score sheet, Kessler comes up and steps up for the Ducks team, not only with goals, but also with assists.
Yeah, and I got a guy who is actually their captain, their star player, Ryan Getzlaf. He had a really subpar year when it comes to scoring, only like 13 goals, when usually he's putting up 20 to 30, kind of like a Jonathan Taves. He's had a subpar season. Corey Perry hasn't been great either. The Anaheim Ducks have kind of gotten in because their supporting cast has been great this year, which goes to your pick of Ryan Kessler. I'm going to have to go with Ryan Getzlaf, though, because in the playoffs, you need your star athletes to shine. That's Perry and Getzlaf. And the Ducks, I really think their time is winding down for them to possibly win a Stanley Cup. And Bruce Boudreau,
Definitely.
you know, he chokes in the playoffs all the time.
In the NHL, he chokes. In the AHL, he's shined. He's won 2 Calder Cups back-to-back, almost, I think, back-to-back, I think.
Yeah, but maybe
unreal.
it's just him. Maybe they need to retool the coaching again if Bruce Boudreau does not get them to the Stanley Cup final, which they very well could. But I think that the Ducks, they're going to get past this series with Nashville, but we'll quickly look at Nashville first off, their players to watch there. And you got a guy who I know you despise only because he could have been a Capital.
I don't despise him as a player. I despise the general manager, George McPhee, from Washington. Philip Forsberg was a Capital, one of the rookies, and he was supposed to be the NHL prospect of the year. He's turning into something amazing. The Capitals traded him for Martin Erat and Michael Latta. I like Michael Latta. Martin Erat did nothing. But Philip Forsberg, just to focus on him, one of the best in terms of goal scoring. And if you watched film of him, it'll blow your mind. It's amazing what he can do with the puck. Just even when he's got other teammates open, he'll do a little toe drag and score a goal. Spin move, score a goal. He's unreal. I think he has like 40 goals this entire season, and he's only a second-year player.
He reminds me a lot of a young Evgeny Malkin. He can do a lot of different things and skill moves and finesse to the net. As for my player to watch for the Predators, I'm going with James Neal, the former Penguin, who has stepped it up in his second year in Nashville. He's an all-star this year, putting up the goals like we knew he could in Pittsburgh, finally doing that down in Tennessee. So it's good to see him kind of having success. Patrick Hornquist has been good for the Penguins, so that trade was okay in my mind because Neal was kind of an enigma in the locker room as well. So we have the Ducks winning this series, but Nashville very well could pull something out, Anthony, because Pekka Rinne, one of the best goalies in the NHL, and Anaheim relies on a couple young guys with Frederick Anderson and John Gibson, a local Pittsburgh product.
Yeah, I got the Ducks. I had them in the preseason. They look good. Bruce Boudreau, as we said, this is his time to win the Stanley Cup, or at least, again, get to the finals, or at least the conference finals against the Dallas Stars. So Ducks should have this one pretty much in the bag. But look out for this Predators team.
And then we'll go to the last part of the Western Conference now, and the matchup there. It's a California battle not far down the road from each other. The Los Angeles Kings and the San Jose Sharks. And the Los Angeles Kings, they're pulling the San Francisco Giants from Major League Baseball. Every other year, it seems, they can win a Stanley Cup, which, while I like it, I'm kind of getting sick of, it's a pattern and I'm going to be able to predict who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I'd like to see Los Angeles kind of fall out early because of that, but also San Jose, they struggle in the playoffs every single season. No matter how good they are, they choke worse than Bruce Boudreau teams do. And we'll start with Los Angeles first, though, and players to watch. You're going with the guy who was just traded there this past offseason, from Boston after the Bruins kind of dumped House, Milan Lucic.
Yeah, Milan Lucic, you know him from Boston. Yeah, he's up there with Zdeno Chara as people that you know from Boston. Milan Lucic didn't have as good of a goal-scoring season as you would think he would have for the Kings this year, but he is that star athlete on the ice that you put him together with some of his teammates, he can feed the puck pretty well as well, and he's also one of those hard hitters.
Yeah, and for my player to watch, I am going with Anze Kopitar, the assistant captain for the LA Kings. He's the reason they win a lot of these games that they do win, because Anze Kopitar is one of those names that you don't hear a lot because he's out in Los Angeles, and we have kind of the East Coast bias where we're not going to hear about those players a whole lot. But Anze Kopitar is one of the best players in the NHL. I really would say top 15, maybe top 10 on his really good days. Anze Kopitar could lead the Kings yet again to the Stanley Cup just based off his play alone. But when we've seen the Kings win a Stanley Cup, it's because of the supporting cast. But Anze Kopitar really is kind of the supporting cast there. That's what makes him so good. He's so good, but he doesn't need to be the guy every night. And so now we'll move on to the San Jose Sharks, and we're finally going to see our first defenseman approach for our players to watch. And Anthony, that comes from you, the San Jose Sharks. You're going with Brent Burns. I just got to say, that beard is wonderful. Talk about playoff beard. Imagine how long that thing could get. And it looked like Brett Kiesel after a while.
Yeah, Brent Burns, you got to look at defensemen every now and then. He's one of those defensemen that not only can he score goals, but he does well on the penalty kill as well. You got to have good defense if you're going to have good offense. And he has that transition from defense to offense, and he's great from the point in terms of shooting and scoring.
there's a lot of people thinking he should win the Norris Trophy because of the way he's played all year long, but he may not be in that final group. As for my player to watch for San Jose, I'm going Joe Thornton. He's getting up there. He's about 36, 37 now. Was traded from Boston a long time ago to try and win a Stanley Cup in San Jose. His time is running out. You kind of look at Teemu Solani a few years back. His time was running out. You need to get him an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup, and we'll see if that's going to happen this year. And quickly, our prediction for this series. You have the Sharks.
I do.
I have the Kings. We're finally different on this one. Why the Sharks?
They look good this season. I know they choke in the playoffs, but I think, as we said with the Ducks, this is their time. They need to do something now. As you said before, Joe Thornton, he's running out of time to go somewhere. I think the Sharks have the edge over the Kings this year. Just got that gut feeling, and the stats look like it's going to go with the Sharks, even though they're the 3 seed.
And I'm going to go with the Kings in this one. I think the Kings are just playoff tested, and they're going to get the job done. So I got the Stars, the Blackhawks, the Ducks, and the Kings. And you got the same 3, but the Sharks. We'll revisit the Western Conference a little bit later. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go through the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic and the Metropolitan, and our favorite 2 teams, the Capitals and the Penguins, when we return on the NHL Playoff Preview Show for 2016 on CUTV.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
With Cal U's 6 on-campus residence halls and Vulcan Village's garden-style apartment complex, University Housing offers the very best value in service, convenience, privacy, and security. On-campus students will have easy access to classrooms, the newly renovated Natali Student Center, and a variety of activities across campus. University Housing Properties includes all utilities. Other common amenities to all properties are fully furnished rooms, high-def cable TV, high-speed Wi-Fi access, and live-in professional staff. Vulcan Village also includes a full kitchen and laundry room. The property has a 24/7 fitness center, convenient shuttle service, and an outdoor seasonal saltwater pool. Model rooms and tours are available. Stop in the University Housing office or contact us by phone or email to learn more.
First published in the 1880s, the California Times is the oldest student media at California University. Circulating 3,000 issues weekly on campus and in the surrounding community, the Times' mission is to deliver fair and balanced news to the student population of California University. All students are welcome to be a part of the California Times. Our offices are located in the Natali Student Union. Keep up to date with the Times online at www.caltimes.org, Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to the NHL Playoff Preview Show. We got off the West Coast. We're back home. No jet lag, thankfully, this time. We're going to talk the Eastern Conference playoffs. We're going to start in the Atlantic because our 2 teams that we love to call our favorites reside in the Metro. So we're going to start in the Atlantic. And Anthony, the first matchup we have here, the Florida Panthers, surprise team this year, #1 seed. They're going to be taking on the New York Islanders, who are a wild card from the Metro. And when we look at this series, the Panthers, I think, are the better team. The Islanders, though, have more playoff experience in the last few years. We'll go with our players to watch, starting with Florida. And you've got Jonathan Huberdeau, who has been a guy up and coming over the last few years.
Yeah, and my good friend Damon Matson mentioned him to me. I was trying to find a player to watch other than Jaromir Jagr that is a star athlete for the Florida Panthers. And he mentioned Huberdeau, one of those athletes that play alongside Jagr and on other line, but can also get the scoring and assists done.
Yeah, Florida wins in an odd way. They don't score a lot. They play a lot of defense. And you mentioned my player to watch, Jaromir Jagr. How could you pick anybody else but Jaromir Jagr? He's got a few more teeth in that picture than he has nowadays, but such a good player. And I've forgiven him going to the Flyers after there was talks he was going to come back to the Penguins a few years ago. I've forgiven him. He's going to have his number retired as a Penguin after it's all done. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Penguin probably. I'm okay with his success in Florida. He's a great player, and who knows? His time might be winding down. I think maybe a couple more years, but hey, if they're going to win him a Stanley Cup in Florida, this is the year. We'll now go to New York and the Barclays Center. Our old alumnus Woodchuck, I know he's probably excited for New York Islanders hockey there. You got Johnny Boychuk to watch here.
Yeah, Johnny Boychuk, somebody that, again, not necessarily well known on the New York Islanders team, but gets the job done when he needs to get it done in terms of, again, scoring and assists. And having that plus rating is huge at the end of the season for Johnny Boychuk. And
for myself, I'm going Tomas Greiss, former goaltender for the Penguins. You local Pens fans may know him. He's the starter now because the Islanders' goaltending situation has not been good this year, and he's not looked great. I think that's why the Islanders are going to boot out quickly. I think the Panthers win it in 5.
No doubt, Panthers win this one in at least 5 games because the Islanders they're there. They kind of squeaked into the playoffs this year, but the Panthers just have that team that they haven't had for a very long time. This team is actually really good contenders this year.
And now we'll move to the next matchup in the Atlantic, which pits the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2 seed, against the Detroit Red Wings into the playoffs for the 25th consecutive season. They looked shaky towards the end of the year, but the Red Wings are in, and I think they're the favorite now in this matchup because the Lightning, they've been hurt quite a lot. And we'll go to your player to watch. You got the goaltender. I just came off a goalie. Now you have your first one as well.
My first and only goaltender, Ben Bishop, and the only reason I picked Ben Bishop is because he's the only person that can save this team right now from losing to the Detroit Red Wings. Steven Stamkos is out with an injury. Probably their best player by far on the Lightning team. Ben Bishop has to stay tall in the net in order to keep what little Tampa Bay offense has going in terms of scoring.
And my player to watch is the offense for Tampa. It's Tyler Johnson, who erupted in the playoffs last year. You probably remember that a little bit. Like 9 goals in like 4 games or something like that. Crazy stat. Really good player, but without Stamkos there around him, he really doesn't have a lot of support. He's going to have to go off again, and it's going to be hard for him to because he's going to be facing a lot of double teams. And now we'll move over to the Detroit Red Wings. You're going Dylan Larkin here, young guy. I believe he's a rookie as well, yeah.
He's a rookie, and Dylan Larkin, probably one of the better rookies this season. There's a lot of good rookies this year. Dylan Larkin has a huge amount of goals this season for the Detroit Red Wings, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's ready for the playoff atmosphere, or if he's going to kind of get a little nervous being a rookie in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year.
And I'm going with a guy who's been there for a while for the Red Wings. I feel like he's been all 25 playoff teams for the Red Wings, even though he's only 37. Pavel Datsyuk, he's going to be retiring at the end of this year. He's going to go back to Russia to spend time with his family, maybe play in the KHL. He's been a great player, and maybe Detroit can give him one last title to kind of twilight his career out, and it'd be great to see. I have the Red Wings winning in an upset. This is my first upset so far in the playoffs. I believe you're going the same way as well.
I am going with the Red Wings as well for the sole reason that Tampa Bay has a lot of injuries, and that's going to hurt you in the playoffs.
Yeah, and who knows? Steven Stamkos, we may never see him in Tampa again if he signs elsewhere in free agency. Now we'll move into the Metro Division, and Anthony, this is where we start to get excited because you love the Washington Capitals, really the Hershey Bears, but you like the Capitals. You get the Flyers. I'm sorry we couldn't keep them out as Penguins fans to Capitals fans. Unfortunately, Flyers snuck their way in, but this series is going to be great. And we'll start with your player to watch for the Capitals. It's the young gun that they got, Evgeny Kuznetsov.
Yeah, Evgeny Kuznetsov, he was an all-star this year because Alex Ovechkin couldn't go due to illness. And he went off in the all-star game. And I loved watching this guy play. There's a lot of Capitals players I could have went with because they were Hershey Bears players. I know them. I know how well they play. One guy, Dmitry Orlov, had an amazing goal, kind of did a little magic trick with the puck and put it in empty net. But Evgeny Kuznetsov can just do a lot of different things with the puck that just some players can't do. And this Washington Capitals team is stacked with players that aren't the star player, Alex Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom. just unbelievable with this team and how they can all come together as a team instead of relying on Ovechkin and Backstrom.
Yeah, and for my player to watch, I'm going with a guy that used to be another Penguin, Matt Niskanen, because when me and Anthony watched the Pens-Caps game last week, I was rooting for Matt Niskanen because he was still helping his team, though his former team at least, the Penguins, because his play was erratic all night. He needs to step it up because the Capitals have had defensive problems all year. They've had a lot of injuries. Brooks Orpik, Matt Niskanen's been hurt a little bit. They need somebody to step up, and I think Niski is that guy that could do it.
Well, for the Washington Capitals, a lot of teams in this playoffs, they all have injuries. Washington Capitals, after Jay Beagle looked like he got hurt in the last game of the season, he's into play for the first game of the postseason. The Washington Capitals have 100% healthy players on their team. That's great going forward.
That's always huge in the playoffs. And now we look at the Philadelphia Flyers, who will likely change your health percentage because they are a goon squad team. You got Shane Gostisbehere there, the Ghost Bear, as they like to call him in Philly. Another rookie, this time a defenseman who can also put the puck in the net.
Ghost, as they call him in Philly, is just that. You don't see him when he has the puck. He's flying down the ice with the puck, weaving in and out of defenders, and he's scoring goals at will. Just one of the best scoring defensemen in terms of rookies that I think I've seen in a very long time, and the Philadelphia fans, they all love him. But you're right exactly with that. With the Flyers-Capitals matchup, the Flyers, they beat you. And it's not in terms of scoring. They beat you physically. So if you win and you get out, good luck in the next round because you're going to be tired and sore.
Especially on who you might play. And my player to watch for the Flyers is Wayne Simmons. He had 32 goals this year. Great front of the net presence, and that's how you beat Holtby. Get in front of the net and try and deflect one in past him because Holtby's been great this year. Tied Martin Brodeur for the most wins in a single season. It's going to be hard to beat Braden Holtby, but I think Wayne Simmons is the guy that could do it. And now on to our predictions. This one might be the easiest series to predict. I say 5 or 6 games because I think the Flyers will probably steal 1 or 2. But I'm going with the Capitals this one in a matchup of less of two evils, I guess I can call it.
Well, yeah, I got to go with the Capitals at least out of the first round because they're my favorite. But I just think this number 1 NHL team is not going to go out fighting. They had a little bit of a slump, but I think that's because they really just started focusing on how we're going to get to the playoffs, through the playoffs, and make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's what they want.
And now we go to the next series. My favorite squad, the Pittsburgh Penguins, taking on the New York Rangers. Pens fans, could you believe it? At the beginning of the season, into the middle, playoffs, not happening. Then Mike Sullivan comes in, and it's like 09 all over again with Dan Bylsma, and I could not be more excited. I really think the Penguins have a legitimate shot. I honestly think Capitals or Pens, one of those two teams is coming out of the East. I kind of gave away my pick already. We'll start with your Penguins player to watch, a former Capital that you're sad to see go.
Yeah, Eric Fair, having watched him play against Washington and watched him play for Pittsburgh, he still got it. He was on waivers because he was a free agent. Capitals didn't pick him back up. The Penguins said, why not? And they picked him up in free agency, and he's been nothing but helpful for this Pittsburgh Penguins team. He's still scoring, yet he also has a wonderful defensive presence. He's able to reach that stick in really far to be able to get that puck.
Yeah, he's got one of the longest reaches in the entire league. My guy to watch for the Penguins, another new addition recently, Carl Hagelin, a former Ranger who knows how to beat Henrik Lundqvist. He was in a trade from the Anaheim Ducks. They sent a couple guys, I don't even remember at this point who they sent over to Anaheim. But his trade has turned into a miraculous deal. They got 3 more years of him as well. He's already doubled his point output from Anaheim to Pittsburgh. He's been great. He's the fastest guy I've seen on the ice all year long on any team. He's going to bring a new dynamic and a fold to this Penguins squad that could help them finally beat the Rangers in a playoff series the first time in 3 years. But quickly, before we get to our predictions, our Rangers players to watch, you're going with Chris Kreider.
Chris Kreider, one of those that not necessarily is the front runner for the New York Rangers, but he's always a presence on the ice. One of those players that just, gets under your skin, but can also really, move the puck around and also score.
And for me, I'm going Eric Staal, another trade acquisition. You see he's still in his Hurricanes uniform there. He was picked up to score for the Rangers, and he's really not done that a whole lot. Look back at Martin St. Louis when they got him. He really didn't do a whole lot. They need Eric Stahl to come through in the playoffs if they're going to move forward. You could say Lundqvist in this spot, but that's too easy. They need goals because they don't score at all, it seems, throughout the year. And I'm going with the Pens. You're going, I think, with the Rangers, though.
I think I'm going with the Rangers. I almost can't remember who I picked.
This one's a toss-up,
it
really.
It goes either way because the Rangers are so good. I think I did pick the Rangers, I think.
Yeah. So now in our playoff series, it's going to be Florida, Detroit, Washington. I've got Pittsburgh. You've got New York. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll take another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to go through the second round and the conference finals for the West and the East before we make our final Stanley Cup picks right here on the NHL Playoff Preview Show 2016 on CUTV.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
With Cal U's 6 on-campus residence halls and Vulcan Village's garden-style apartment complex, University Housing offers the very best value in service, convenience, privacy, and security. On-campus students will have easy access to classrooms, the newly renovated Natali Student Center, and a variety of activities across campus. University Housing Properties includes all utilities. Other common amenities to all properties are fully furnished rooms, high-def cable TV, high-speed Wi-Fi access, and live-in professional staff. Vulcan Village also includes a full kitchen and laundry room. The property has a 24/7 fitness center, convenient shuttle service, and an outdoor seasonal saltwater pool. Model rooms and tours are available. Stop in the University Housing office or contact us by phone or email to learn more.
First published in the 1880s, the California Times is the oldest student media at California University. Circulating 3,000 issues weekly on campus and in the surrounding community, the Times' mission is to deliver fair and balanced news to the student population of California University. All students are welcome to be a part of the California Times. Our offices are located in the Natali Student Union. Keep up to date with the Times online at www.caltimes.org, Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
It's time for some second round action. If you were able to survive the blood, sweat, and tears shed in the first round of our little preview section, then you're going to be really amped up for the second round in the West in the conference finals. We'll start with the West, and we'll pop up the bracket again, our first one, which was the Central Division. It was the Stars, Wild, and you had the Blues, Blackhawks. We both had the Stars and the Blackhawks coming out of that one. Who do you really give the favor to in this matchup, though, Anthony?
I got to go with Dallas Stars. And for the sole reason that they've been that hot team this whole season. You know, Blackhawks, they're good, but they haven't been consistent this year. They haven't been the Blackhawks that we've been seeing for the past few years. Whereas the Dallas Stars, they've been consistent this entire season. Sure, they've had some games where they've lost, but I haven't seen anything that would tell me that they're going away without a fight against the Chicago Blackhawks team.
Yeah, and I honestly cannot remember who I picked right now. I can't remember whether I picked Dallas or Chicago. I want to say I leaned towards Chicago because I give them the playoff experience nod in this one. I think Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, Artemi Panarin, Artem Anisimov, Andrew Ladd, Corey Crawford, Scott Darling, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook. I could go on for about an hour. The amount of guys that have contributed to playoff wins on that roster. Dallas, you can't really do that. They've not really had the taste of success in the playoffs. I think that's what's going to hurt them in this series if these two teams, in fact, do match up. I'm leaning towards the Blackhawks. If I pick the Stars, then I'll admit I'm wrong here, but I'm going to go with the Blackhawks. I think this one could easily go 6 or 7 games, though, Anthony.
Oh, yeah, and when you get out of the first round matchups, you start looking at, teams that really are, offense heavy and sometimes defense, but these games will last a long time. It's very rare when you see the second round in conference finals lasting less than 6-5 games.
Yeah, and about that time, you see a sweep, it's like, what happened? Did the other team not show up or whatever? If like the Lightning get in, they might get swept because they have so many injuries. But now move down to the Pacific Division bracket, and we both had the Anaheim Ducks, and then we differed a little bit. And you had the Sharks, I had the Kings. And we'll let you go ahead, Anthony. Ducks and Sharks, who do you think comes out of that one? The Ducks, the 1 seed, the Sharks, the 3 seed. Both of these teams have had problems advancing in the playoffs. Who do you give the edge to?
Ducks, and Ducks for the reason that they're a little more experienced than the Sharks. I think the Sharks squeak out a win against the Los Angeles Kings, but I think the Ducks have that talent and they want that win, that they're going to be able to pull this game out in around 6 games.
Yeah, I think the Sharks could give them a run, but I mentioned before, I went with the Kings in the first round, and I think the Ducks are a lot better overall team. The Kings are more fundamentally sound, but you got to score goals in the NHL playoffs, and the Ducks know how to do that, I think, a little bit better than the Kings do. I'm going to go with the Ducks in this one. I think Los Angeles, they're a great team. They're consistent every year. They know how to win in the playoffs, but Anaheim, it's their time. I said it a couple years ago that it was their time. I said it last year, it was their time. Maybe one of these times I'll get it right, and the Ducks will prove me right. And like the Super Bowl, maybe they can just say, hey, we're going to Disneyland. It's right down the street from you. I've seen the Honda Center. I've been to Disneyland from an Angels ball game. Honda Center is beautiful. They need to treat themselves to a trip to Disneyland after winning a Stanley Cup if they're able to do it this year. So now we have the Western Conference Finals set. You have the Stars and the Ducks. I have the Blackhawks and the Ducks. Where are you going?
I'm going with Dallas Stars. I think they're the better team than this Anaheim Ducks team, and just Dallas. I think Dallas has a better shot.
The only thing that worries me about Dallas is their goaltending. Kari Lehtinen, I remember him in Atlanta. The joke is he's letting too many in. You get it? Lehtinen. Yeah, there you go. Haha. Anyways, I'm going with the Anaheim Ducks over the Chicago Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks, you mentioned it, they're not the same team that they have been in years past when they've been building a dynasty there, winning Stanley Cups. Anaheim, it's their time, I think, finally, hopefully. I've said it a few years now. Maybe I'm right eventually. The Ducks, I think they got the ingredients. Corey Perry, they've got Ryan Getzlaf, they've got John Gibson, a great young goaltender. Ryan Kessler, you're a guy to watch. I think it's finally their time to go to the Stanley Cup final for the first time. I want to say 06-07 when they beat the Senators in the Stanley Cup finals. I think the Ducks are really, it's about time they get back to the promised land. And now we will move on to the Eastern Conference. And in the Atlantic, we both had the Panthers and the Red Wings. I'm going to go with the Panthers because the Red Wings have been shaky all year. The goaltending has been really shaky. And I think the Panthers with Roberto Luongo, the better goaltending situation there, Jaromir Jagr, Jonathan Huberdeau, Aaron Ekblad. They've got a lot of guys down there in Florida that know how to win. Even though they have not done it in the playoffs, I think they're going to start doing that this year. And we're going to see a little bit of a budding team for the next few years. And
I have the same thing. I have Florida definitely beating Detroit for basically the same reason. Florida looks like they're the better team. They're the better team on stat sheets anyways. And they got Jaromir Jagr. Yeah, I mean, you can't say that Jagr is not going to do well in the playoffs. He is going to light it up in the playoffs. Detroit isn't going to know what hit him. I think this game gets done in five games, this series.
Yeah, I could easily see 5 or 6, just depending on, because Detroit has that experience. So now we move down to the Metro, and this is where it gets a little bit of a brotherly love kind of fist fight.
That's Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, brotherly, come on. No, don't even.
It's ironic, right?
It's ironic, yeah. So you had the Capitals and the Rangers. I had the you think. I'm pretty sure you had the Rangers. Capitals, Rangers. I've got Capitals, Penguins. Why? I know you're going the Capitals. Why Capitals over the Rangers?
Well, again, if I'm picking the Rangers, I'm more concerned than I am with the Penguins because when the Caps play the Rangers in the playoffs, they fall apart. For some odd reason, the Rangers just know how to beat the Caps in the playoffs. But I think this season is completely different than other seasons. This Capitals team has shown they want it. They have the most points in the NHL, and they're that hot team. The only thing is, President's Trophy curse is on them. Everyone is out to get them. Everyone wants them gone from the playoffs. They got a target on their back because they're right now obviously the favorite to win it all, being the President's Trophy winner. If you look at it just by not necessarily the stats, but being the most points in the regular season. So,
and if there's one team in the NHL playoffs that can eliminate the Capitals and prevent them from winning the Stanley Cup, it's my beloved Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think they will do just that. 7 games again in Washington. The memories of Sidney Crosby and Ovechkin's dual hat tricks a few years ago back in 2009 when the Pens won a Stanley Cup. Fleury stopping Ovechkin on that breakaway. Great play, by the way. Go look it up on YouTube if you want. 2009 playoffs, Fleury stops Ovechkin breakaway. I think the Penguins, they have what it takes to beat the Capitals again. They have Crosby, who's one of the best players in the world, even though Ovechkin, they kind of cancel each other out, let's be honest.
Ovechkin scored 50 goals for the most in like 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, third straight year, yeah. But Crosby gets the total points, so I kind of cancel that out. The goaltending, Fleury and Holtby, 2 of the best in the league. Murray for the Penguins, he's an up-and-comer, and Marc-Andre Fleury, when he leaves, Matt Murray is going to be great. The defenses, they're both kind of not great, but they'll get the job done. It comes down to the back 6, and both of these teams are still great there. And you got your former guy, Eric Fair, back there for the Penguins, Matt Cullen, a couple guys, and then for the Capitals, you've got Tom Wilson, Orlov, a lot of other guys.
TJ Oshie.
TJ Oshie. He's back 6? Or is he front 6? I
think he's the second line.
I'm assuming he's front 6. Okay. But yeah, they got a lot of depth on both of these squads. It's hard for me to pick. I think the Penguins win in 7. But if the Capitals win, all the luck to them and good for them. I think it's time they finally win a Stanley Cup. They have the team to do it. This is just going to be a bloodbath all the way through. And maybe the Penguins can be on the National Gallery steps again, chanting them on.
We were talking about teams that need to win a Stanley Cup, and this is their time to do it. It's the Washington Capitals. This is their team to do it. If they don't do it this year, I don't know when it's going to happen again, that they're going to have this kind of team, because they're going to have to make some cuts in terms of players. Players are going to start wanting more money and whatnot. You got all these players from Hershey that are stepping up, but some of them are going to start wanting more cash, and you're going to have to start cutting people that might be some of your better players.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL. Eventually, their time's going to run out, and I think the Capitals, this is their prime window to do it. As for the Penguins, they're just getting better. They have young guys. They're kind of doing what the Capitals are doing, but they have longevity on their side for it. So we'll see how it all works out. So, Western Conference Finals, we have the Ducks and the Blackhawks and Stars, and then the Eastern Conference, you have the Capitals and Panthers. I had the Penguins and the Panthers. And we will figure out who we have winning each of those series when we come back from another commercial break. We're about to wrap up the show. We'll get our Stanley Cup predictions, our Stanley Cup picks. I know Anthony and I, we're both going with our hearts in this one, but Anthony's pick actually may surprise you, and I almost didn't choose the Penguins as well. So we'll see which way we lean when we return on the NHL Playoff Preview Show here on CUTV.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
With Cal U's 6 on-campus residence halls and Vulcan Village's garden-style apartment complex, University Housing offers the very best value in service, convenience, privacy, and security. On-campus students will have easy access to classrooms, the newly renovated Natali Student Center, and a variety of activities across campus. University Housing Properties includes all utilities. Other common amenities to all properties are fully furnished rooms, high-def cable TV, high-speed Wi-Fi access, and live-in professional staff. Vulcan Village also includes a full kitchen and laundry room. The property has a 24/7 fitness center, convenient shuttle service, and an outdoor seasonal saltwater pool. Model rooms and tours are available. Stop in the University Housing Office or contact us by phone or email to learn more.
First published in the 1880s, the California Times is the oldest student media at California University. Circulating 3,000 issues weekly on campus and in the surrounding community, the Times' mission is to deliver fair and balanced news to the student population of California University. All students are welcome to be a part of the California Times. Our offices are located in the Natali Student Union. Keep up to date with the Times online at www.caltimes.org, Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
Hello there, and welcome back to the NHL Playoff Preview Show. We're about to get ready to divulge into who we have winning each conference before we get into our Stanley Cup final predictions. And we'll start with the West. You had the Ducks and, yes, Ducks, Blackhawks.
No.
Ducks, Stars.
Stars.
Yes. I was Ducks, Blackhawks. I said Ducks in that one. And you said Stars, so we have the West set. As for the East, you have Panthers, Capitals. I had Penguins, Panthers. Who you got in the East?
Caps. They can beat the Panthers, no doubt. The Metro Division could beat any team in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
Just they're that kind of powerhouse team. I know you have Yager on the Panthers, but
one man does not make
Right.
a Stanley Cup.
however, I think Yager could beat the goaltenders easier, than most players.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yager's got the skill to be able to do it. But I agree with the statement you made to start off your point. The Metro is so much better than the Atlantic.
Except in the All-Star game.
Yeah, that doesn't count because the only players that showed up were Penguins and Capitals for the Metro because all the goals were scored by Penguin or Capital players.
Right.
Kuznetsov and Letang and
Malkin.
And Malkin, yeah. So,
Both two Evgeny's.
yeah. Evgeny connection. Instead of the French connection, it's the Russian connection. How about that? So I'll go to my little prediction. I have Panthers, Penguins. I had the Penguins winning that one easily. I say 5 games. I think the Panthers, they're not ready yet to win a Stanley Cup. And I think they could win a Stanley Cup, but I'm adverse to picking teams that are kind of up and coming because
Right.
It's not their time yet. They'll get their shot. They're not quite ready yet to win the Stanley Cup, and I think you tend to agree with me. We go into the Capitals, and I said before, whoever wins the Penguins-Capitals series, if it does come down to that, they're going to the Stanley Cup Finals, I think, because those are the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. They just happen to be in the same division. And think of it this way: if it was based on the old system where it's 1-8, 2-7 and such, then the Capitals would still be getting the Flyers. The Penguins would be getting the Islanders. And that series could go either way. But the Penguins and the Capitals would be playing in the Stanley Cup or in the Eastern Conference Finals, which would be a whole another level of a show in that little race.
That it would. I almost wish the Pens and the Caps, like it was before, where they weren't in the same division. That way they don't play each other until possibly later on in the playoffs where you're fighting for that Stanley Cup championship game in the conference finals. Wouldn't that be amazing to have these two teams fight in the conference finals? Big rivals there. Something that I would have liked to see, but it's not going to happen anytime soon after they change the.
It might never happen in the next 10 years or so until they redo the whole system again after they add a team in Las Vegas, which might happen this year. So in the West, we said Stars, Ducks, Capitals, Penguins. It's time to find out who you got. And right there you see, I'm going with the Penguins over the Ducks. I think they win in 6 games. Anthony, you're going against your beloved squad. You're picking the Dallas Stars over the Capitals. How many games and why?
Dallas Stars in 6 or 7 games. Why? The Capitals couldn't beat them in the regular season, and it's not going to change in the playoffs. The Dallas Stars, for some reason, they figured out a way to beat the Washington Capitals, and the Capitals just couldn't score any goals against this Dallas Stars team. It's frustrating to see the scoreboards of playing the Dallas Stars, probably the best team in the West for the entire regular season, basically, and losing to them almost every time. I think they might have won one game in the entire series against Dallas, if that. And I just think Dallas has what it takes to beat this Washington Capitals team. They've proven it this entire regular season.
And I'm going with the Penguins in 6 because when it comes to playing John Gibson, the local Pittsburgh kid that we talked about, the goaltender for the Ducks, the Penguins own him, especially when he plays in Pittsburgh. He is demolished by the Penguins. And I think the Penguins, their speed, their offense, it's lethal right now. And I think the Penguins are going to follow the same script they did in 2009. They're going to change coach midseason. They're going to make a run. They're going to get into the playoffs. They're going to get to the Stanley Cup final, and they're going to win it. I think the Penguins will raise their 4th banner. They'll get their 4th ring, and you can add names to the Stanley Cup this year like Crosby, Malkin, Hagelin, Rust,
Eric Fair, who would have been on the Washington Capitals team and would.
You at least got to be happy for him.
You do, but then you're like, you're going to another team to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
I wish you would have stayed here to help us.
Think about Marian Hossa. I loved it when he was a Penguin. He said, all I want to do is win a Stanley Cup. He went to the Penguins, and that was the year they lost to the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Finals. Next year, he goes to the Red Wings, and he admittedly says, I have a better chance to win a Stanley Cup here. What happens the next year? The Penguins beat the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup. Best thing ever. I loved it. But now, we not only had our picks for who we think is going to win, we also had our friends Damon Madsen and Danny Beck do their picks. We'll review theirs, and then we'll review our overall brackets before we get out of here. And we'll start with Danny. He was supposed to be on the show. He had a little bit of a scheduling conflict. He's actually in the studio right now. We see Danny right there. He's got the Stars over the Capitals as well. Basically almost the same kind of thing that you and I had, except he's got the Kings making it to the Western Conference Finals. He's got the Lightning advancing past the Red Wings, and, of course, his beloved Rangers going over the Pens.
But he doesn't have the beloved Rangers beating the Capitals. I think that game is going to be difficult. If the Caps play the Rangers always have that drive to beat the Capitals, and they've done it before. So we'll see exactly what happens. I think the Kings is a bold prediction by our good friend Danny Beck.
Hey, they could have even gotten bolder and maybe put them into the finals. So now we'll see who Damon picks. And I know, actually, I'm pretty sure he's going along the same lines as me. Yes, Pens over the Ducks. He's got the Lightning actually coming out of the Atlantic. And sadly, I don't agree with that because the Lightning, you've mentioned it, I've mentioned, they are injury-riddled right now.
He thinks that the injuries aren't going to deter them from getting there.
We've seen more miraculous stories. Look at the Phoenix Coyotes, 5 years ago, when they almost made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, when the Kings beat the Devils. I think the Lightning could do it. They could be that one team that surprises everybody, but they're too injured. And then you look at his Western Conference side. He had the Ducks, he had the Blackhawks in there. Actually, he had basically the same bracket as you, except for the Ducks beating the Stars instead. And we've kind of already divulged that matchup, the Pens and the Ducks. What are your thoughts on that one if it happened?
If the Pens and the Ducks play each other, I think, again, the Pens will win. If they make it to the Stanley Cup Championship, they have that team to be able to beat anyone, basically. They're riding a streak of momentum that is worrisome if you're another team. That's not necessarily an underdog because they're always there, but they have that momentum that you can't account for necessarily if you're opposing team. They just have that drive, that will to win. You know, they had their slump when the new coach came in. You didn't know if the Penguins were going to make it out alive with the new coaching change. Mm-hmm. The Penguins adjusted. The Penguins adjusted with Coach Sullivan, and they're reaping the benefits right now.
Yeah, you look over the last couple months. Who are the two best teams in the entire NHL? Capitals and Penguins. I think whoever wins that matchup, like I've said it numerous times, they're getting to the Stanley Cup Final. I think, honestly, either of those teams could win. Because if I look at your matchup, I think the Stars have no shot against the Capitals. I think the Capitals, they play a little bit of a better, more grinding style that the playoffs requires. And Braden Holtby is too good. It's hard to beat him 4 times out of 7 games when he only lost, 9 times this year. Going to be very difficult to beat him. We'll quickly look back.
He tied Martin Brodeur's record. I don't know if we want to mention that.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier in the broadcast. But yeah, he tied it, and he couldn't get it because they went with Grubauer in the final game. But I understand that. Keep him healthy because you saw what happened to Matt Murray. He got hurt against the Flyers.
He's still able to play against the Rangers, I believe.
Maybe. He's day to day. I think it's going to be Fleury and Zakhoff. And that's another thing.
Fleury's back from concussion.
Yeah. It looked like he's going to play tomorrow against the Rangers in the first game. But that's another thing. We've mentioned it. Health. How healthy is your team? Because if you don't have some of your key guys like the Lightning or Tyler Seguin in Dallas, you're kind of in trouble, and you got to require some other guys to step up. And that's why we had our X Factors on this show tonight. We'll look back at our brackets real quick. We'll start with you, Anthony. An overview of all our picks. You had Dallas, Chicago, Anaheim, San Jose, and then the Stars over the Ducks, as well as the Caps, the Rangers, the Panthers, and the Red Wings, and the Caps over the Panthers.
Yeah, I have the Caps playing the Rangers. I think the Rangers beat the Penguins. I didn't remember whether or not I had the Rangers or the Penguins. And I do have them playing the Rangers. It's going to be a tough game. That's going to go down to 7 games again.
Yeah, that's definitely because the Rangers are one of those teams that know how to beat the Capitals. And did you mention? I asked you, does Alex Ovechkin ever fight? And you said only against teams he doesn't like. So, the Penguins, and then you said the Rangers. That'd be a great series. And then you look back at my bracket. We already went through who the final picks are going to be. And all right, I did get all those right. I did have Chicago over Dallas in that one. I had Anaheim over Chicago, like I said in that. So luckily, no errors there. The Pens over the Ducks. One last thought, though. If the Dallas Stars do not win the Stanley Cup, who does?
If the Washington Capitals make it out of the Eastern Conference, they win the Stanley Cup. I think this is going to be, if the Capitals make it against Dallas, I think Dallas wins the Stanley Cup. However, if the Eastern Conference plays anyone on the West Coast, I think the Eastern Conference comes away with the Stanley Cup, except for the Washington playing Dallas thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. I think if the Penguins don't win it, it's going to be the Washington Capitals. It's their time. Ovechkin, I don't like him as a player. I respect him, though. But it's time for him to get a ring. He's one of the best players in the world, best players of our generation. It's time for him to hoist up that Stanley Cup because he is the captain now. And I've kind of had arguments back and forth with you over that. I don't think he should be the captain. I think Backstrom should be. But he's their guy, so it makes sense. Ovechkin would raise the cup and hand it off to a bunch of guys on that team that haven't won one before. Backstrom, Beagle.
Jay Beagle. Oh, love that guy.
John Carlson, TJ Oshie, Captain America. Yeah, he comes through for the Olympics, but he can't win a Stanley Cup. Go figure that. And speaking of, there are not one single Canadian team in the playoffs this year. That's the first time I want to say 7 years that's happened.
That's been a long time.
And I don't know if that's whether a statement on the state of Canadian hockey, that the teams up there just aren't as good anymore, or whether or not that the American teams are just getting better.
Well, we know one thing. The Canadian national anthem will never be played this Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic because "Oh Canada's" a great song. Yeah,
it is.
But yeah, and then that'll pretty much do it. So we're kind of winding down in the final moments.
Too early, way too early predictions. Next season, who you got?
Next season?
Next season.
I'll say Pens over the Blackhawks. Just because I think the Penguins I mentioned, they've got that longevity coming. I think they're going to be able to do this for a long time. I'll say the Blackhawks get back because they seem to always be in it. What about you?
Panthers, Blackhawks. Panthers beat the Blackhawks.
Ooh.
They hoist the Stanley Cup.
I really think the Panthers are going to be one of those sexy picks next year that everybody's kind of riding on, and they may actually do something. So we'll see, though. Too early picks. Also, here's another question. Will there be a team in Las Vegas next year?
I think there will be. There definitely will be. I think they're trying it next season. They're going to have a game played. One of the opening day games is going to be played in Las Vegas.
They have that new beautiful arena that's made just for hockey.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the Las Vegas Aces. I'm calling it. They're going to be the Aces, and their logo is going to be a card, a stack of cards coming up on their jersey or something like that. And who knows, we could see Arizona move in the next couple of years as well. So a lot of things happening in the NHL. This is just a playoff preview. Make sure to follow NHL.com for all the latest updates on the playoffs and other news. Anthony, it's been great having this show back with you. Next year, you're probably going to do this with Danny Beck and Stephen Ruffing, our resident in-house hockey guys that are coming up as freshmen. It's been great doing this again with you. I'll shake your hand, sir. It's been a CUTV tradition. We didn't do it last year because of all the scheduling stuff and women's basketball good to see.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? So now we got it back this year. We're glad to be back. The NHL Playoff Preview Show 2016. Last word for you, Anthony.
Well, tune in. Games start tomorrow, 7 o'clock, I believe, and all on the NBC network. So NBC, USA, CNBC, NBCSN, all of those channels. Make sure you tune in, check your local listings for those games, and it's going to be a great playoff season. It's going to be getting out of the NHL playoffs is one of the hardest things to do because you give your blood, sweat, and tears, and you're bruised and tattered and torn and whatever else. It's a brutal playoff system, yet it's the most fun to watch.
It's the best sport, sometimes the worst league, but they have the best playoff system, no doubt. And, of course, you said blood, sweat, and tears. Can't forget about broken, inanimate objects that we throw when our teams start to do bad. I know I do that. Don't do it at home, though. We want to stay safe this playoff season. Leave the fighting to the players. For Anthony D'Agostino, I'm Zach Prosva, Ryan Kaufman, Mike Mays, and Danny Beck in the control room. Thank you guys for helping us with this tonight. Thank you for watching, and make sure you stay tuned to NHL playoffs this year and next season when we bring you the NHL Playoff Preview 2017 here on CUTV.
And you know, I got the toys in my knapsack, a hoodie I just smacked, bird because I don't play. So got the toys in my knapsack, a hoodie I just smacked, bird because I